regime. There will be bloodshed.
Well, Libyan people, they pay the price already, and they're ready to pay. But they are not ready to be defeated. And then fly zone, that they will strike the strategic points which paralyze this regime, to allow the Libyan people in the east to march, to rescue their relatives, their families, who are suffering now under a very control of the army of loyal to the Gaddafi. We want to open the road for this great march to liberate Tripoli.
Okay, but again, if a no-fly zone is imposed, that would obviously mean that international players get involved in this, whether it's, NATO, US, EU, I mean, however it works, that'll be international players. Won't that have a long-term negative effect, considering that is seen as as foreigners again invading Libya?
We want no physical presence. We want no physical presence on the Libyan soil. That's for sure. But Libyan space, it should be free for any strike against this regime. But Libya soil will be free from any presence or physical presence of any foreign troops. We don't want that. This is very, very important, and I have to be very clear about it.
Ambassador, thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So why has the US been hesitant to pursue military action in Libya? I put this question to Hilary Mann Leverett, a former White House and State Department official. She told me the reluctance comes from the military itself.
Secretary Gates, just 2 weeks ago, in a speech to West Point, said that the next time a defense secretary advised the president to allow or pursue military intervention in another Arab or Muslim state, he should, quote unquote, have his head examined. That's an incredibly bold statement for the Secretary of Defense to make at West Point. And I think he made it because of the depth of concern, the height of concern here that the U.S. could be about to go into imposing a no-fly zone on Libya or other militaristic responses. Keep in mind, to impose a no-flight zone would mean the United States would have to destroy the Libyan Air Force that's on the ground, destroy a lot of the Libyan military. That means a U.S. attack on Libya. A no-fly zone sounds good in the air without context, but the context, the reality is, we would have to attack Libya first to impose the no-fly zone. It's not a peaceful method.
And is the humanitarian effort a peaceful method? I mean, is that something that could start to see some sort of military presence to back up this effort?
Exactly. There too, the idea of helping people to get food and humanitarian efforts sounds good without context. But we have to keep Somalia in mind, the U.S. misadventure, military adventure into Somalia. That also started with the peaceful idea of providing humanitarian aid to Somalians. And it quickly drew the United States into a street-by-street combat on the streets of Somalia. We could say the same thing in Libya. While we say to ourselves, here is the United States yet again going to fight the good fight, right? The United States never goes to just project power. We always go to fight the good fight. We do that on the ground in Libya to provide humanitarian assistance, and the next thing you know, we're in dogfights street by street just like we were in Somalia. It's a very dangerous, slippery slope to go on.
So what do you think now will reinstate a positive U.S. reputation in the region? What can be done?
The most difficult thing needs to be done and needs to be acknowledged. The United States needs to step back, needs to allow each of these states in the Middle East to develop their own independent political orders and their own independent foreign policies. The only way that could happen is if the United States stops demanding that each of these countries do things that are not in their interests and are in many cases offensive to their own populations. So for Yemen, for example, it means to stop requesting or ordering the Yemeni government to have drone strikes on its own people that kill Yemenis. It means throughout the region to stop requesting that each of these governments participate in our war on terror to torture their own citizens for information to help us. And it also means stopping to request these countries to keep a siege on the civilian population in Gaza. These are all U.S. policies that we could change. We could protect our interests without projecting them in a way that is offensive to people in each of these states. That needs to be done, but it is incredibly difficult because it means we as Americans would have to really look within ourselves and say, what are we doing in the Middle East? Why are we doing it? What's important? And to recalibrate that.
Well, the International Criminal Court in The Hague has announced a full investigation into alleged human rights violations in Libya. For the very latest, let's cross to Stephen Cole in our European News Centre. Stephen.
Thanks, Jane. The court's decision means the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, his sons and members of their inner circle could be held responsible for crimes committed by their security forces. The chief prosecutor, Luis Moreno Ocampo, said no one had the right to massacre civilians. Well, who makes up Gaddafi's inner circle? Let's take a look at Kamis Gaddafi. He is seen as a crucial figure and he leads the army's so-called elite 32nd Brigade unit. Foreign Minister Moussa Koussa has also been mentioned by the International Criminal Court, as was another of Gaddafi's sons, Mutassim, who's the country's so-called national security advisor. For more on all of this, let's cross to Anna Fisher in The Hague.
The Office of the Prosecutor decided to open an investigation into alleged crimes against humanity committed in Libya.
Holding the Gaddafi regime to account, the International Criminal Court is now officially investigating all that has gone on over the past days and weeks. Hundreds have been killed in the uprising against the 40-year rule of Colonel Gaddafi, thousands injured. The chief prosecutor believes crimes against humanity have been committed.
The office will investigate who are the most responsible for the most serious incidents, for the most serious crimes committed in Libya.
This is just another step by the international community to put pressure on Colonel Gaddafi and Libya. The prosecutor believes his investigation can be complete in months, not years. He will then present his evidence to the judges, who'll decide if arrest warrants should be issued. And he sent a warning to the rebel groups. We're watching you too.
The United Nations Security Council referred Libya to the ICC. The chief prosecutor believes there is enough evidence to dig deeper. He's highlighted several incidents and allegations of mass killings. The 15th of February in Benghazi, the 16th of February in Misrata, Al-Baida, Derna, Ajdabaya. On the 18th, again in Misrata, and the 20th in Tripoli and Al-Zawiya. Speaking to Al Jazeera, he highlighted what is under investigation.
Crime against humanity is a widespread attack against civilian population. So if you have security forces shooting civilians in a square who are doing a demonstration, this could be a crime against humanity.
The prosecutor believes the rapid call to investigate marks a dramatic change, that the world will act quickly when people are being killed, and those behind it will face justice. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, the ICC in The Hague.
Government officials in the Netherlands are, quote, in intensive diplomatic negotiations with Libya as they try and win the release of 3 Dutch Marines. They were captured on Sunday by forces loyal to Muammar Gaddafi after they landed in the coastal city of Sirte. Dutch officials say the Marines were trying to rescue 2 Europeans who've since been handed over to the Dutch embassy in Tripoli. Libya's embassy in The Hague remains under watch by police while the government negotiates the Marines' freedom. And that's all from London for now. Let's go back to Doha.
Now, Tunisia's interim president has called for legislative elections to be held in July.